Alright, this is section 1.1, part 4. And in this video, we're going to keep looking at our types of variables and data, and we're going to look at the difference between discrete versus continuous. For the most part, the discrete versus continuous, that's going to be another one of those places where you really do want to be able to identify these without having to go back and look up the definitions. So I'm sticking this in here in this independent category, where you at least need to know how to do it for the rest of this class. Of course, it's always great if you can identify the differences later as well, but definitely for the class. Okay, so qualitative and quantitative aren't our only descriptors for variables. And if you've watched the interactive video, you know that there's 2 more things coming. And you might think, there's 4 different types of variables we might see. And that's not quite true. We do have qualitative versus quantitative. And if something is qualitative, then we're done as far as this class is concerned trying to label it any further. We say it's qualitative and that's it. If something's quantitative though, I've got a little caution sign here because we're not going to stop at that point. Quantitative is actually broken down into 2 further possibilities, which actually gives us 3 different places that we could put a certain variable or type of data. And so when we want to break that quantitative down, we have discrete or continuous. And our discrete basically turns out to be our counts. So if we're counting something, it's discrete. And if we're continuous, then we're measuring. And that, in the end, is the basic difference between these two. I also have a little question we can ask ourselves for discrete versus continuous. But the difference really boils down to, am I counting something or am I measuring something? And for the most part, it's clear which one of those we're doing. All right, so I've made it a little bit smaller. Went ahead and cut out the ones that were qualitative, because qualitative does not get identified as discrete or continuous. If it's qualitative, then it can't be discrete or continuous. So remember that. Qualitative has a stop sign. I did that on purpose, because if it's qualitative, if we identify it as something that's a label, we stop and say, okay, that's it. It's qualitative, period. If it's quantitative, we realize that, yes, I can find the average of whatever it is, characteristic I'm looking at. I can find the average of that. Then I have to go a little bit further. So I need to take caution, and then I need to see, is it discrete or continuous? And so again, discrete, just for our so a discrete variable is a quantitative variable that has either a finite number of possible values or countable. So I'm going to say variable where the number of possible values is either finite or countable. And so what does finite mean? Well, finite means that there's an end, right? There's a finite number of people that can be in a classroom. Even if we stack, well, we're not going to do this with COVID-19, but if we stack people up shoulder to shoulder, front to back, we could, maybe fit more people than just the number of desks and chairs that we have, but there's still a finite number of people that we're going to be able to fit into a space. So that it would be something finite. Still discrete, but not finite, would be, how many people could walk through a classroom door? Well, there's not a point in time where a door decides, well, that's it, I can't be walked through anymore because I've had that finite number of people have walked through my door, so I'm not a door anymore. Well, this doesn't work that way, right? I can have an infinite number of people walking through the door, in, out, back and forth, but I can count those people because there's no half people. There's no half a person walking through a door. So I'm counting, I'm counting, I'm counting. It's infinite, but it's whole numbers. So that's what a discrete variable would be. And I'm going to slide that up just a little bit so I've got a little more room for continuous. And then so a continuous variable is, again, a quantitative variable where the number of possible values is infinite and not countable. And so I couldn't just stop at infinite, right? Because we said that countable was infinite, but whole numbers of things. So we have to be specific, infinite and not countable. And so just for an example of what this would be, if I'm getting an exact weight of something, I mean, when somebody asks you your weight, or maybe let's go with height, and we give our height in inches. So I am, let's see, 71 inches tall. I'm 5'11". So I'm 71 inches tall. Well, if you got my exact height, then there's probably it's probably a lot closer to like 10.8 or 10.9 inches, 5 foot and a little bit, rather than exactly 71 inches tall. And so that would not be something I can't count. Those aren't countable or finite possibilities. If I take a pencil, the length of a pencil, let's take a regular pencil that you can actually sharpen. And of course, every time you sharpen it, it gets a little bit shorter. Every time you use the eraser, it gets just a little bit shorter. And so those little changes, when I measure that pencil again, would make a difference. Every single time I write with that pencil, the lead gets a little bit shorter because it goes away onto the paper. I break the lead, it gets a lot shorter. The pencil gets broken in half, it gets even more, a lot shorter. So those little differences and changes turn out to be what we mean when we say something is continuous. So when we're actually measuring something on a scale, and it may not just be whole numbers.